Welcome to the Indian Newslink podcast series Coffee with Kamil by Kamil Lakshman.
Are we alone? Do we feel loneliness? Often, actually it's the truth, that we are born alone, and when we die alone. So does it have something to do with that? That sense of being alone. I often think of the term unity in diversity. Is there loneliness in chaos, in activity? That seems to be one of the reasons that causes unhappiness or a feeling of being alone. So is loneliness that you are not loved, or somebody doesn't take care of you, or that you don't have people around you? What does it mean? I have thought about it, and one of the conclusions I've come to is that it is to do with connectedness, being connected to something, someone, or something higher. It's when that lacking occurs that sense of loneliness arises. Maybe it is a birthright, that when we are born, we are nurtured as a baby and loved. Well, that's usually the birthright. But many aren't. Many don't have that kind of love around them and the nurturing that they deserve. Some of these, later on, have that sense of abandonment that they need to deal with for the rest of their life. So at that point, this connectedness raises its head, that even at that baby stage, you're connected to something, someone. But when you don't get that, then that lingers with you as you go through life. Because whatever you do, whatever you achieve, that there's something there that is still unfulfilled. That sense of longing for that initial connectedness. But even if one had that, it still seems to raise its ugly head later on when a spouse dies, when a person goes through some kind of grief, or they feel as if there's no one they have in the world. And there's billions of people in the world, they cannot connect with one person. Now that's a pretty horrifying thought, if that is the case. Because imagine not being able to connect with anyone. That would be such a terrible space to be in. Consequences that arises from that feeling of not being able to connect to anyone, and the emotions that flow from it. So this connectedness is the most essential link that we as human beings need. Linked to something, connected to something, whether it's a pet, whether it's a human being, something that makes us feel complete and whole. I'm not sure how we are designed and why we are designed that way, but it takes someone who has a connection with higher forces to be able to stand on their own. If you have not reached that point and you are on this journey to reaching that point, then it seems that you have no choice but to be able to connect with something or someone to not feel alone. That just seems to be the design. Why it's designed like that, I have no idea. So to avoid loneliness, connect to something. Be aware that connection is needed. Find the connection. Find the connection either in a human being, in a pet, in something that nurtures you, that satisfies you, at the heart level, in the deepest core of your being. That seems to be the solution. And a solution is needed because the consequences of not being connected means loneliness arises. And of course, the consequences that flow from that are not pleasant.
Thank you for listening to the Indian Newslink podcast series Coffee with Kamil by Kamil Lakshman.